It is official. Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan are going to be racing in 2025, and they also have an option to go after a Stewart-Haas Racing charter. We're going to talk all about how this came to be, catch you up on the latest from the NASCAR versus 2311 Front Row Motorsports lawsuit, and really just go deep into why this is quite possibly the biggest W in NASCAR history for the fans, for the teams, for the drivers. It's just a very historic day, and thank you for being here with me on this channel to talk about it. I'm Chase Holden, and welcome to my official YouTube channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment on this video. I'm going to be very eager to hear what you guys have to say. As you know by now, I'm on this new kick where I'm not really doing a lot of notes. I'm just kind of flowing. I'm kind of being myself, just doing it my way. Hopefully that's working out for some of you guys. The numbers will tell. But let's just not beat around the bush anymore. I want to get right into it. I got a text from my good buddy Matt earlier today, big Denny Hamlin fan. And him and I are always chatting, here and there about, what's going on in the world of NASCAR with me, having a lot going on in IndyCar, which, by the way, big shout out to my co-host on Speed Street Podcast, Connor Daly, for signing his deal for 2025 with Juncos Hollinger Racing. He'll be racing in IndyCar full-time in 2025. So it was already a big day for me. And then this news came out, and it really is like Christmas is coming early. That's the way that I personally feel about it, because this is a lawsuit that I have personally wanted to see go in the favor of 2311 Front Row Motorsports, just basically the teams of NASCAR. And if you don't know much about what's going on, you found yourself on this video. I've done a couple videos now on this topic. So if you're here on this channel, click subscribe, go through the videos, and you'll be able to see those. But we're definitely going to touch on an article. This all started today, though, for starters, with Bob Pockris. So big shout out to Bobby P, always putting the work in. And that's where we're going to start it. So this came out earlier today. Breaking: 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have obtained the preliminary injunction to race as chartered teams in 2025, as well as for approval of the SHR transfers. A lot of people were automatically just kind of like, whoa. And honestly, I say a lot of people. It's really not a lot of people that have that have responded to it. Then again, this is a screenshot that I took. So at the time, after about an hour had passed by, about 2,000 people had liked that tweet. So I'm sure that they're well into the fives by now, hopefully. But it does seem like this news has not really hit the airwaves. And maybe that's because NASCAR kind of got the shaft a little bit. Maybe they got big game. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. We're just going to go into the facts and talk about what happened, how this came to be. A lot of you know that they have been trying to figure out a way to race. They were going to race without the charters for 2025, and it kind of went quiet for a little bit. Drones started invading America. Tech started going nuts. That's where my head's been, and this pulled me back. So breaking it down, this has to do with a couple of different factors. And I'm wanting to say that it had to do with the drivers, Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. So from my notes that I have here, it looks like they didn't have it locked in. It caused a lot of problems at 2311 with Tyler and Bubba, specifically the key drivers. There was something in the language of the contract basically saying that they could opt out of their contract if there were no charters, and Reddick had already filed a breach of contract notice, which meant he could walk away after 30 days, and that's called imminent harm in legal terms. So when we're looking at that, that's already some legal jargon right there for you. Imminent harm. Pay attention to these words. These words are going to be important. So going into the judge ruling, just as a quick overview, the judge agreed that without a charter, 2311 would lose their drivers and competitive edge. That harm was serious enough to force NASCAR's hands. So the judge rules NASCAR must let 2311 and Front Row sign their charters, and they're also allowed to buy a charter from Stewart-Haas Racing pending NASCAR's approval. So there is that pending NASCAR's approval there. To get a little bit more, I guess I tried to make it as easy to understand on the forefront, but we're going to go dive into this article that you can find over on Fox Sports, and it'll give you a little bit more context from Bobby P himself, a.k.a. Bob Pockrass, the man, the myth, the legend. So this is a great article you can find over on Fox Sports. You just go to Google is a big one. I use Perplexity a lot nowadays. Go there and you can find the links to this article. But he's updating. Bob Pockrass has been updating this as he goes, so it's kind of just a bulletin board for Bobby P. But December 18th, in a big victory for 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, their request for a preliminary injunction was granted. Judge Kenneth Bell's ruling requires NASCAR to allow 2311 and FRM to sign the charter agreements they were offered in early September. NASCAR had said those offers were off the table and approved the transfer of a charter each team plans to purchase from Stewart-Haas Racing. The injunction is only good for 2025. As the judge plans to have a trial completed before the start of the 2026 season. The teams didn't initially sign the charter agreement because they wanted to pursue the antitrust lawsuit, but the charters included a clause releasing NASCAR of legal claims, so they pursued the injunction, which was initially denied by Judge Frank Whitney in mid-November, with the caveat he would reconsider it if circumstances changed. The team submitted new circumstances, and Judge Bell, who was assigned the case last week, no reason for the change was given, ruled in the team's favor. NASCAR can appeal the ruling to obtain the injunction. The teams need to prevail on 4 factors. So let's go into these 4 factors. Likelihood of success. The judge ruled that the clause in the charter agreement that released NASCAR of legal claims would likely be considered unlawful, that the release is not a model of clarity. Inscrutable would be a fair description. The judge noted that the court emphasizes that it does not reach and express no opinion as to plaintiffs' likelihood of success on their other antitrust claims. The judge did opine that NASCAR's claim that premier stock car racing is too narrow of a definition of a market when it comes to antitrust claims was not persuasive. The availability of multiple sports in the United States says nothing about NASCAR's control of a major one of them, in the same way that the availability of professional basketball and football did not lead to a finding that the NCAA was not a monopolist with respect to the highest levels of college basketball and football. So I'm going to stop there for a minute because it's a lot of words, it's a lot of legal terminology, and I just kind of want to help you understand what this means if you need it. You might not need it. You might be a big brain guy. I'm not going to lie. I don't have a law degree. So I, like most Americans, have to use the internet to figure things out, but I've summarized it very well, I feel. So the illegal clause, so NASCAR had a rule in the charter agreement saying teams can't sue NASCAR. That's what all that was about, is that there is a rule in the language. And honestly, it blows my mind that they could have something so idiotic. But I guess that there was just no one that challenged them enough, or challenged them quite like Kessler has, Jeffrey Kessler, lawyer for representing 2311 Racing. The judge called that rule illegal and anti-competitive. In simple terms, NASCAR can't force teams to give up their right to challenge unfair business practices. So, maybe this explains why so many NASCAR fans are college football fans. The NCAA and NASCAR have a little something in common, where they, just with their antics, I guess we could call it, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Getting back to the article here from Bobby P. Irreparable harm. The judge ruled that because drivers notified their teams of potential breach of contract and sponsors said they are reviewing their financial commitments was enough to show irreparable harm. Tyler Reddick, who won the regular season title for 23-11, would have become a free agent December 19th because the team is required to provide him a chartered car. The judge ruled that the ability, whether it would happen or not, for Reddick to negotiate and potentially leave was enough, and his leaving is not something that could be compensated by financial damages if the teams ultimately won the lawsuit. Balancing of equities. The judge ruled that NASCAR would not be harmed by the injunction as it initially had plans for 36 charters and a corresponding payout structure, while the teams would have possibly missed races as an open team. Public interest. The judge ruled that the public interest is for the teams to continue racing as chartered teams. NASCAR fans and members of the public who may become fans have an interest in watching all the teams compete with their best drivers and most competitive teams, the judge wrote. Further, the public has an interest in preserving the rights of litigants to pursue legal claims in good faith, particularly antitrust claims that aim to preserve the process of commercial competition. NASCAR did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the ruling. So there you go. There was a little bit of sauce for you, a lot of legal jargon. Bobby P, kind of a word cell, a little bit of a wordsmith right there, old Bobby P. But let's just break down, if none of that made sense to you, why is this a big deal? The case just isn't about 23-11 anymore. Other teams can now join in the fight if this rule is thrown out completely, and that's called the 10.3 release clause. So that's an illegal clause. A judge has now stated, like, hey, NASCAR, you cannot make it illegal for a team to sue you. It's pretty absurd that they thought that they could in the first place. I guess I really don't know what they're thinking. That's just that's total incompetence at this point. I guess some people can claim, well, privately owned companies can do what they want to do. Sure, look at Walmart. But this is big because now every other team that signed that charter, that was pressured, that was put under the thumb of Big France, they can come back up and say, yeah, you know what? Screw that. This sucks. This is stupid. We're not going to do it. I think that if there was one major team, this is complete speculation, if there was one major team that I think would come out and join this right now, it's going to be Joe Gibbs Racing for how things were handled at Martinsville. If you don't think that Chris Bell and Joe Gibbs still have a salty taste in their mouth, I promise you, it's salty as fuck. They do. I would not be surprised to see Joe Gibbs join in on the fight. Hendrick will be the last team, if I had to guess. But I think Joe Gibbs will be next in line. I really do. This is kind of, Front Row Motorsports being the only Ford team that's in this, but the Toyota boys, them Toyota guys, whatever you want to call them, I can just easily see Coach Gibbs being like, it's time. It's time. It's time to serve them. It's time to hit them where it hurts because they've hit us where it hurt this year. And that's their way of looking at it, their perception. I did a video on that as well. I think that was handled correctly by NASCAR. But that doesn't mean that Joe Gibbs and the boys think that it's right. So from here, I mean, this is a lot to unpack that we've had today. It's been a huge news day. It's been a huge news month, really. But this is really just an amazing thing because so many people were saying that there's no way that they're going to win this. There's no way this is going to work out in their favor. There's been so many people in the past that have tried to stand up to big NASCAR, and they've all been shot down. Not anymore. This is a different world that we live in today. This isn't the days of old where the good old boys are shaking hands without it being talked about in the public. You don't have much privacy anymore, and it's very hard to put the wool over people's eyes, as my grandmother used to say. You just can't do it anymore. People aren't stupid. And if you're one of those people that think that the majority of people in this world are idiots, then you're probably the idiot. And I hate to break it to you. There's a lot of smart people that have common sense on this planet. And whatever you may think about NASCAR fans, I know a lot of them. And, they know their shit. and they're not naive. So this is just a big W, not just for Denny, Michael, for everybody. Really for everybody. For once, I feel like we could be entering into an amazing new future of racing. And I really do feel like that's what's happening right now. Like, there's a big shift happening in our world. There's a big shift happening in sport. And I think that this story deserves a lot more talk on the big major news networks. I've watched NFL football this year, and it's kind of sucked ass, to be honest with you. This deserves big news. It is one of the biggest stories that is happening right now with one of the most iconic athletes of all time in Michael Jordan. So, like I had said from Bobby P's article, NASCAR can still appeal, but regardless, it's just a big W. I don't know if they're gonna appeal. I'm sure they will out of fear from other teams coming around. But without this ruling, to put it simple, 2311 would have probably ceased to exist the way we know them, because Bubba and Reddick would have probably had to jump ship. They got to think about themselves. They both have families. Bubba just had a baby. I mean, you can't. Connor says on Speed Street all the time, these things don't just happen with hopes and dreams, and it's true, man. You got to take care of yours at the end of the day, and so nobody could have blamed them for that. But fortunately, it's not going to come down to that. The judge just had no choice but to act here because the harm was too clear. So 2311 will get to keep racing. They have an option to potentially get an SHR charter, and NASCAR's control over teams is really under some serious scrutiny now. So I'm ready to see what NASCAR does next. I want to know what you think they're going to do next. I want to know what you thought about this video and all the information packed in. And I just want to hear your thoughts. And I just appreciate you for watching this, for liking this video, subscribing to this channel, helping us continue to build this amazing motorsports community across NASCAR and IndyCar. This is America's teams. And I'm out here representing them with all of you great race fans and individuals watching this video. I'll have a lot more videos coming soon. Be doing a little auto tech talk. We're going to keep you updated on this court case and everything else happening inside of NASCAR and IndyCar. That's all I've got for today. I'm Chase Holden. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.